Welcome to Cambridge Inside Out, the most exciting television in Cambridge.
Oh my!
I'm Robert
in
Winters.
Cambridge, maybe, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. Judy Nathans.
And today is December 4th, 2018.
This city. I mean, the year is coming to a close. It's like, where did it go?
It's racing by, yeah.
Racing by.
You know, it's funny when I put together various things related to city council meetings and whatever. You know, I put
Yeah.
together these calendar events.
Yeah.
You know, and then I kind of keep them. So I've got like the calendar. Oh yeah, we finished another year. I've got
And
like
then you
about
look back.
18 years of these calendars
my
that I've been
God.
maintaining.
You're really
It's like
the-
1 year rolls to another, rolls to another.
They need to dedicate a room to you at the library.
Actually,
all
my-
your stuff's electronic.
My big, actually, let's make this a request.
What?
So, you know, I like to write April Fool's versions of the Cambridge Civic
Yes.
Journal.
Yeah.
And this coming year, 2019, April 1st actually falls on a Monday, so it'll be right when it is a city council meeting.
Oh.
You know, and I usually kind of generate my, you know, make-believe
Snarky
stuff,
comments, yeah.
but my April Fool's joke, I just sort of make them up sometimes
Yeah.
within a few hours, right? So if anybody's got any really good ideas,
Uh-oh.
send them along, right? You know, let's
Just,
have a little fun on April 1st, yes.
rwinters.com. Well, actually, r.winters at...
Just Robert at rwinters.com. will get you
that's right,
the-
Robert
yeah,
at
yeah,
rwinters.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so,
And
yeah.
there's no dot between the R and the Winters, or is
No,
there?
no. So, and my students actually call me R. Winters. That's my name. You know, I'm not Professor Winters. I'm not Robert. I'm
You're
R. Winters.
not
yeah.
RW or...
You know, I think it's because they have the course websites are on,
And that's
you know,
how it's all
something
defined.
math.rwinters.com, and
All right.
it just sort of it's sort of like an inside joke, you know.
Oh,
but
okay.
it works.
All right, good.
So, you know, I am my username. That's it.
Ah.
I have no separate identity anymore.
Yeah. So last week, even though the city council meeting was very short, there were a bundle of committee meetings and community gatherings and Fifth Friday, so we could briefly, and Astro
yeah.
Week, so we could briefly review that, and then there was a pretty comprehensive meeting last
and
night.
by the way, I have proof that at least
What?
one person watches this show.
Oh, who's the...
I
Oh,
think
I know
maybe
more
on the
than one
internet.
person.
I know. I listen. I know.
I
bunch
know
of
who you're
people do.
talking about.
No, you don't. Who you
Oh.
No, it was actually one of our Cambridge's finest police officers
Oh.
who said, "Hey, I really like your story about your Thanksgiving adventure in upstate New
Oh,
York."
my God.
Yeah. And then we got to talking about New York State
Great,
police
yeah,
officers
yeah.
and whatever.
I think more official type people watch this show because I want to see what you're up to.
Well, it's true, and again, I'm not trying to like put anyone on the spot here, but sometimes I do see references of things that I wrote on Civic Journal or
Yeah.
things said on this program.
Yeah.
Watching a subsequent city council
Yeah,
meeting, I hear
yeah.
somebody make a statement, I go, that's an awfully familiar sounding
Yeah,
phrase.
or they'll give you credit. I mean, Jan Devereaux gave you credit in her
in the
report on government relations.
Government relations, yeah. Well, yeah, and actually, let me just mention that one there. There was, it's a topic we could certainly talk on
Oh,
many
you
times
go
over.
to that now?
Well, I was just going to say
Oh.
is that so we did a thing. I put together kind of a good summary version of how much money municipal candidates
Oh,
raise
right.
and spend,
That's what she...
which is not as easy as you might think, because when a candidate loans themselves money and then pays it back during the same year, then it's not like that was an expense and a receipt, you know. So
But do you actually see when they paid it back?
yeah, so if it's
Oh.
done, you know, if it's reasonable to sort of subtract that out
I
to make
see.
it look more real.
Yeah.
You know, like if somebody fronted their campaign $50,000 and then only spent $5,000 and
Yeah,
took
that's a whole different
$45,000
story.
back,
Yeah.
then come on, it's a $5,000 campaign, right? And it needs
Although
to be
some people
reflected that
question,
way.
gee, where'd they get the 50,000
Well, yeah,
to
really,
begin with?
well.
But anyway, okay, so go ahead.
Anyway, so that's what Jan referenced at this government. At
And
the
you get that
committee
information, what's it called again?
Well, the Office of
public-
Campaign Political Finance is really
Office
the
of-
source of all the data.
And is that true for both city, state, any elected
Yes,
office?
though it's done differently. So if you're
Okay.
if you're a municipal campaign,
Yeah.
because Cambridge has a population in excess of 100,000,
Uh-huh.
municipal election candidates must do depository accounts. And
Oh.
what that means is, like during the election year, they get bank reports every twice a month, on the 15th and at the end
What
of
do
the
you mean
month.
they get bank reports?
The banks actually have to issue it to the Office of Campaign Political Finance, and then it's
okay.
put up on the web.
So it's throughout that election year.
You get very, very frequent reports, which is, which is sort of convenient, but it also
Yeah.
means that it plays into one's obsessive compulsive
So
tendencies.
that means
I have to
every
keep
other
looking
year
all the
you've
time.
got to, because our election's every 2 years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the funny thing about campaign finance is that you can have a candidate who looks like they didn't raise and spend a ton of money right up through election day.
Yeah.
But the thing is they're still collecting money
Receipts.
for
True.
weeks and months afterwards, and then they're still paying bills. So sometimes there's some candidates who famously get a huge amount of money comes in 2 weeks after election day. You know, because it might have looked bad if it came in before election day to get
You
some
mean
big
they
checks.
purposely hold it off?
I think it's sort
Or
of
maybe they just don't deposit it right away?
No, I think it's sort of an understanding.
Maybe they return it if they lost.
Is
that possible?
I think people are trying to
don't know.
game the public perception a little bit sometimes.
Well,
And the
okay.
other thing too, so the way I've kind of settled it is this: I sort of consider the live time for a municipal election campaign to begin in about this month,
Oh my
December
goodness.
2018
Wow.
through January of 2020 will be.
20. Oh gosh.
Yeah, so I give it about a 14-month
Oh,
span.
that sounds so long.
Well, the
I
thing
know.
is
All
there are
right,
some
I understand.
candidates who are just starting
Yeah.
out. Like Quentin
Okay.
Zondervan started out doing
Yeah.
some multiple $1,000 fundraising
Yeah.
in, maybe it was even starting in November of
Wow.
2016 for the 2017
Wow.
election. Well, if you're a new candidate, you sort
I
of
know,
want to
you
get
have
a
to
little
get
early
out.
money, right?
So can we talk about this whole thing? Because that was a committee report on how you finance campaigns.
Yeah.
But I like let's do that a little later maybe.
Oh, whatever.
Well, no, I think it's interesting because it's not going to go away because it's an election.
Yeah,
year.
I tell you, let's just touch on it a little bit right now. 'Cause,
Okay, and then we'll do that review of the whatever.
yeah, so there was as part of the city council agenda for yesterday, there was a committee report from the
November 14th, because that was
Government
televised,
operations.
which you still can all
Yep,
see.
you
It's
can go
on
see it,
video.
right?
It's a very good meeting.
Yep, and it was the topics were Councilor Toomey had proposed something called a
Cambridge Municipal People's Pledge or
People's Pledge,
yeah.
you know. But there had also been proposals by others in previous years for
Right.
putting
Some kind of
some sort of
finance, right.
publicly
Starting in
financed municipal
2014, I
campaigns.
think, yeah.
Yeah, that's when we first saw the first hints
Right.
about this.
Okay.
Now, the truth is this. There's no way that this is just done independently. You know, I think it was a pretty much a common knowledge that the Citizens Committee, the grassroots organization that was doing this, happened to have Nadeem Mazin's
Oh, you're
personal
talking about
address.
that initial, the
Yeah.
independent
So
something,
that was
yeah.
basically
Okay.
one of Mazin's little groupoids of people, of activists who were pushing campaign finance. Now, this is not to say it's a bad
It's
idea or
not-
a good idea,
right.
just to say that it was very much wrapped up into somebody's own political
And it
future.
probably has occurred in the past, even before Nas
Well, I
became
mean,
a counselor, right?
Well,
I mean,
it's-
you've been around,
It's not a new
right?
idea. I
Right.
mean, the thing is that people
Yeah.
talk about publicly financed elections all over the place.
Right, and
it's
many
been
cities are
implemented
doing it
some
in different
places.
ways, and this is
In
what,
different ways, yeah.
and,
So some people want to actually do it here in Cambridge, right?
yeah, it
So
comes
came-
up every year or
Well, so
somewhere.
yeah, it went before government operations maybe 4 years ago, and then it came again, whatever. And I got a chance to talk at each of those meetings, but this most recent meeting I was scheduled when I was teaching, so I couldn't do it.
But Jan Devereaux did an excellent graph, what do
Yep.
we call it, PDF
Gave a
of
good
the
history of it
whole
all.
history of it
Yep.
and what other models are. So that was a really good
Right.
start.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's a real discussion I think that can
Yeah.
be had there. But one of the things that was missing, I think, in this round is what I would have contributed had I
Yeah.
been there, is the specifics of proportional representation elections. Okay, so the thing is that it's one thing if you're talking about two candidates trying to go head to head, or four candidates trying to win a seat, or something like that. Like people fighting out who's going to be mayor of
Right.
a city where there's a popularly elected mayor, right? So that's one context. It's a very different thing when you're talking about an at-large election to elect 9 people where you have 26 candidates, right? The dynamics are sort of different. There are candidate slates, which are not the way it's going to be in most elections. So I put a few speculative
Oh, right.
notions out there.
That was your thing about raising, if you gave money, then all those people in that slate would
Yeah,
get money.
I
and
mean,
then to
yeah.
get
How does
some-
this work? I mean, the thing is
Yeah.
that if you were an organization who sort of were running as an organization where you had a few standard bearers who you wanted to elect as part of your slate, what you might be able to then do, especially if the candidates have no skin in the game because they're not they're not using their own money. What they do is, a lot of it depends on how much money they would get, I suppose. But you could get a group of people to contribute whatever the minimum required amount would be to, let me just make up a number and say 20 candidates.
Yeah.
And get them all to be your slate candidates. They would
Yeah.
all then be eligible for money. You take all that money,
Yeah.
and then you basically use it
Really
to
buy a
promote
lot
the
of
slate.
it, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so the thing is that so you have slates end up becoming this dominant force here, as opposed to individual
An
candidates.
aggregate of money, yeah, it
Yeah.
wouldn't be,
Now,
yeah.
now this is just speculation. I'm just saying is
Yeah.
that that's the type
That's
of
one, yeah.
but it's one of those considerations that I think people have to have if you want to talk about doing this in a Cambridge context, right? You know, and I mean, one thing, there were some years when there were effectively no slates, but in the last few years, you know, so what are you going to have? You're going to have a bigger Cambridge or a better Cambridge?
Cambridge.
Kind
It's
of a
getting
bigger
bigger.
Cambridge,
It
right?
is bigger.
But the thing is so if ABC says, okay,
Yeah.
now they're an independent thing, they raise money,
Right.
you know, they're in a 501c4, so they're going to have, if they stick around, I don't know if they are going to stick around, but they raise a pile of money, you know, so they're going to get a bunch of slate candidates, you know,
Yeah.
and then they're going to get some public money on top of that, and then they're going to basically, you know, what's it going to be, Clash of the Titans here?
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, okay, so that's one, right.
right.
But
And
then
the other
there's-
thing too is that PR elections work just fine if you've got maybe 15 to 28 candidates for 9 seats. It's not so many candidates as to become overwhelming. But you know, honestly, even when we had, was it 26 candidates last
Yeah.
time around?
Yeah, we had
There
3
were-
open seats.
Right, and open seats, in the end, there were actually 2 candidates were elected, never even reached the election quota because the votes were spread around among so many
Right,
candidates.
so there's so many chances you can get elected, so there's other factors when you have
Yeah.
a PR election, so,
And all of the examples that people quote are from places that are not in any way similar to the way Cambridge's elections are structured.
like,
So-
Seattle,
Yeah, they,
New
well,
York.
first off, none of them have proportional representation.
okay, and New York and LA, right, because the small donor, there's different models.
Well,
Full
that-
funding means, and I don't like that one, like, let's give 15,000 to each candidate.
Right.
And then the small donor, like you raise a certain amount, then you can get a matching donation. It's 6-1 in New York City, it's 4-1 LA, so I guess they
Yeah.
have that kind of thing. And then also, and vouchers, I think is what Seattle does, but they're very small, it's like $75 but they spent 1.7 million in Seattle, but here it would be equivalent to $250,000 that we would have to
Right.
spend. So I don't know if the taxpayer, I mean, then there's talk about having this on a ballot,
Well, I agree. That was part of the committee
Yes.
report. I think Jan Dever was
Right.
mentioning that
which
the
would,
idea
I guess,
be,
bring it out to the community, but,
but you know, but
because, you know, councilors shouldn't be deciding this. I think she brought that up too.
I
It's
think
like,
that's
'cause that's
really
who
true.
it's affecting you.
Yeah.
You can't have, it's like the fox, whatever that analogy
right.
is.
But you know, but there is a kind of a funny thing about the municipal elections. If you put a ballot question on that's very politicized,
You're gonna
and a
get
municipal
certain-
campaign, then
yeah.
it ends up becoming part of the election campaign for the candidates. You know, do you support this? Don't you support
Well, if they
that?
take a
Maybe
stand
that's
on it,
fair
but maybe
game.
they won't take a stand on it because in some ways, if they support, yeah, give me 15,000, that
Right.
might turn off people.
Well, and it could sort
Yeah,
of affect
I
the
think
elections.
it probably has to be separate from the municipal campaign.
I'm, you know, the cynic in me basically, well, but there's not a whole lot of ways to do that. 'Cause-
Well, they've done questions out, like they did a survey of Cambridge citizens. Can't you do something like that?
you can do things
It wouldn't
like
be
that.
binding, but maybe
Yeah.
just, hey, well, how do you
Yeah.
feel about this?
But, you
And
know,
try to reach people.
Well, one of the
Yeah.
things that I learned and taught when I taught a statistics course at Wellesley College was that when you're doing you know, surveys and samples
Mm.
and studies, so much is biased into the way you phrase a question.
Oh, absolutely.
So, for example, if you say, "Do you support publicly financed elections?" People go, "I think that's a great idea."
Uh-huh.
Well, do you support it being mandatory that your tax money should be?
Right,
They go,
that's
well,
a
now
different
I'm
way
not
to
so
put
sure.
that. Yeah, right.
Right.
Or Obamacare versus
Yeah, and they say,
affordable
well,
health
you know, as Leland Chung pointed out,
Yeah.
well, how do you feel about
Yeah.
a candidate who's been convicted of a felony
Oh,
being
right.
eligible to receive
Right.
receive public
Yes.
funds?
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
because by virtue of the fact that they're
Yeah.
a candidate, and then the person responding goes,
Yeah.
well, maybe I'm
Yeah.
not so sure now.
Yeah. Well,
know?
not, yeah, I mean, that's very general, but you're
Yeah.
right. I mean, because, I guess Mayor McGovern brought that up last night in one of the last comments about it was, how do you determine what qualification, is it a higher threshold that's needed? Well, that's
Right.
actually said in her
Yeah.
report too. But
Yeah, I think the bottom
Yeah.
line too, and I think Sumbul Siddiqui said this, it was
Mm-hmm.
part of the report, and I think Mayor McGovern pointed this out as well,
Yeah.
which is that, you know, though once upon a time, perhaps having a deep pockets and the ability to send out gigantic tricolored, glossy citywide mailings
that,
would
yeah.
affect your electability. but that's becoming less and less relevant today.
With certain if you're under
Right.
40, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's one candidate who actually raised and spent the most money in the last municipal election, was not elected.
Right.
And
He had a
one of-
lot of literature, yeah. Everyone had a lot of literature,
Right.
but
but there were other
Actually,
candidates who did fabulously well, who didn't
Yeah.
spend a whole lot of money at all. So,
I mean, it favors incumbents, that's for sure. The election, I mean,
most elections do
Yeah,
favor
incumbents,
incumbents.
right.
You know, so I certainly wouldn't blame somebody who's really trying to break in because
Yeah.
it's really important to them.
well, what
for
about
wanting
term
to raise
limits
and
then?
spend
And
more
that's
money.
all these things have been thrown out, like the questions around how we elect people. So you could have term limits, which means you
You know,
have
I
more blood coming.
I
How
have
do you
to
feel about that?
I like newer blood, but the thing
Yeah.
is that's not the same as favoring term limits. I mean,
Alright.
there's a sort of encouraging people to get other jobs, or maybe having the salary not be so lucrative that they are absolutely dependent on the city council job. But the thing is that when there is some value in having the kind of institutional memory of having some candidates who've been in the
Yeah,
office for a
that's
good
true.
long time.
I appreciate like
You
Tim
know,
Toomey's historical.
I mean,
memory
and I said,
things, yeah.
as much as Ken Reeves and I have had our differences over the years, I thought it was a real shame that when he left the council, because the thing is he had a very rich
Yeah.
set of memories about what didn't work and what things were tried and why they failed.
Yeah,
You know, and as city staff becomes newer, there's more turnover in that as well. You sort of lose something, and I kind of I like having a city council which is a mix of people who've been there a good long
true.
time
All right.
and,
And
the people who are
you're
new.
right, so term limits would
So
not.
it's turnover.
So basically,
that's
people
important.
have to just, they elect who they want to elect.
Yeah, so I
You
just
look
hope
at
that
the-
the
yeah.
circumstances are such that there's going to be turnover.
What do you think about the, one of the other ideas is district reps?
I hate the
versus-
idea.
Yeah, because I think we have PR, which almost gets to that.
The
I
thing
think,
about
you know?
people who
Yeah.
are, I think people are a little mistaken when they think about having district representation.
That's what they have in New York, right? I'm not sorry, Boston. They have
That's-
at-large
they have
and then they
a
have
combination
district,
of, I
right?
think it's 4 at-large city
Right.
councils, and then they have districts.
Right,
You know, and some people think that's great because you are the district council, you're the go-to person in the district.
Mm-hmm.
But the truth is, in Cambridge, even with at-large elections, you as a candidate can run various specific geographically
which is
centered
basically
campaigns.
what they do, and I
Right.
think PR actually allows that.
Traditionally, it
you
was
know?
now these distinctions are sort of becoming historic relics now, but it used to be the Cambridge Civic Association or
Mm. Oh, right.
CCA versus the Independents,
True.
capital I Independents. And
Is that kind of east-west?
well, it wasn't
No,
exactly,
no.
but
Yeah,
the Independents tended to run more geographically based campaigns. So
okay,
Tim Toomey, geographically based out of East Cambridge.
Okay.
Before him, it was Al Vellucci,
Right.
geographical out of there. Tom Danahy was out of North Cambridge. Danny Clinton out of Cambridgeport,
right,
right?
And then you had-
Walter Sullivan was more of a citywide candidate, but still his base was still in Riverside, Cary Corner area.
right.
Billy Walsh was probably one of the great changes to that pattern
Oh, was
because
he-
he was an issue-based independent.
Oh, he was the anti-rent control.
because he was so
right.
solidly anti-rent control. So
Wasn't Rafferty also on the council? Was there a
Jimmy
James
Rafferty was served on the Cambridge School Committee.
Oh, the school committee.
Yeah.
Did he run for council?
I
And
don't
lose?
believe he did. I
Oh,
don't believe
alright.
so. I could be wrong. So the thing is that you effectively have had district councilors
Yeah.
because voters can choose their own
It's a
district.
small
essentially.
enough city that you do
Right.
identify with neighborhoods.
Right,
Yeah.
so our system basically just
It's sort of
by
already
design,
there, yeah.
it allows you
Yeah.
to run as a district councilor as well as an issue-based councilor,
Right.
or based on your identity, be it
Right.
ethnic, religious, racial, whatever, right? So, and if to whatever degree you can get 10% of the voters to identify with you geographically,
True, all you
racially,
need is
religiously,
10% of the
or
total, yeah.
whatever, then you got yourself a
Not a
seat.
whole lot of votes when you think about it. Like quota is what,
No.
usually around 1,600 or something?
Well, that was during the low years.
The
so
low
we-
years. This year
it
was what?
It was like, what, 2,200 or something like that? It was a big jump.
But
you
still,
know?
when you think about what elections are won by and stuff, it's
Yeah.
like 2,200
Well, it'll be
votes.
interesting to see whether
Yeah.
people continue to vote in the municipal election last year like they did.
Yeah, it may
s-
not,
next year like
since
they did
there's
last
not
year.
any open, well, we don't know. Maybe open seats.
We'll see.
When
Yeah.
do, people don't usually have to declare till what, July?
Nobody has to declare
Declare.
until
Well, you have to then-
you fail to file papers.
That's what I'm saying, that's July? Is that June, July?
Right, so it's actually in the month of July.
Okay.
You get to take out nominating papers July 1st and turn
And
them
then
in
July
July
31st.
31st.
Okay.
Or, depending on what's a weekend
Sure,
or
so you
not.
get a month to get
Yeah.
your papers in. Okay.
So I think it was at Alice Turkel when she was choosing not to run for school committee
right.
the last time.
Yeah.
I was having a little fun, like, where's Alice? Where's
Oh,
Alice?
I remember that, yeah.
And she was just sort of being a little evasive.
Yeah.
But she actually wasn't going to be running again,
Yeah.
but she didn't want to put the announcement out too early.
Huh.
And that's happened before. There were other times when somebody didn't let it known that they weren't going to seek re-election because they knew who they wanted to follow them.
Oh, so they didn't want to get anybody else
So
in
there
on
was
it?
kind of an understanding with the
Oh.
other person so that you didn't get a flood of new candidates trying
Isn't
to
that kinda
jump in and
cheating?
get that seat.
Oh, well, it's
Well,
just
it's
gaming
fair.
the system, I guess, yeah.
It's gaming the system,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Huh.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
so I guess that's, all right, so I guess we covered that. But
So
that's,
that's election,
again,
yeah.
watch a video, the committee, well, that must have been like a 500-page agenda packet, right? Because
It was huge, yeah. I didn't even bother to pick it up this time until Monday night, and I just picked up one just to have it, and I'm going to discard
got-
most of it anyway.
well, don't discard the committee reports, those are my
No,
favorites.
I hold on. Yeah, no,
Okay.
actually, sometimes they're great.
Yeah.
Actually, my favorite things are the reports from the Historical Commission
Oh.
when they're talking about landmarking something or doing some
Yeah.
sort of historical study. Those are real keepers.
Yeah.
One other interesting item that was on the agenda, it was really from the city manager's agenda.
There were 18 items on that one.
Yeah. But it had to do with it now starting to initiate the process of the refranchising of the cable TV franchise.
Oh, right, yes.
And that, in the early days, actually, you probably know more about this than
Yes,
I
I
do.
do,
In the early days,
yeah.
what was the first company that landed the contract?
American Cable
Systems?
Systems. Mhm.
Right. So the thing is, when they were first doing it, they had the responsibility to basically build out the network. They had to run wires and do all that stuff, right?
This was after the municipal referendum, because a lot of us wanted to own our own system.
Right.
And we lost by 100 votes, or
Yeah.
37, something, out
Yeah.
of 25,000, so.
Yeah. It was
Anyway.
a close call.
Yeah.
But the thing is as American Cable Systems built out the system, they were required to do certain things. Like if you
Right.
can't just build up part of the city, you had to build up the whole city.
You had to provide.
You couldn't
public-
just get the rich folks to get the cable and
Right.
the poor folks not, right?
Yeah.
And you had to provide government
Public-
access, public access,
And educational access.
right? Which you still have to do. But there was some room for negotiation under the laws at the time, or regulations at the time, so that
And everybody wanted cable TV, because they
Everybody
had
wanted
the
cable TV.
reception and everything. And
but your local
there was no internet, by the way. People think, oh, we had a
that's
municipal
right.
broadband. No, we didn't. It was just cable
so we're talking
television.
like mid-'80s here.
Oh,
or earlier.
yeah, mid-'80s.
Right.
Yeah.
So I never even saw a browser until about 1993 myself.
Yeah, so I know, because people confuse that. Oh, we tried once and everyone wanted it. No, it was different. Because
Yeah.
now we're saying broadband, forget the cable TV.
Yeah. Now I remember in the first, so I think it's every 10 years you have to re-up
Yes.
the franchise, right?
So it's coming up in
So it's coming up.
2021.
Right. Now, in the early days, you could actually make as part of the negotiation specific things about pricing, about selection of
Pricing?
channels. I think, well, you could
I-
argue. I don't know how much you could
I
argue in
don't
pricing.
know that for sure.
Right, but the thing is that, for example, if you wanted to say, well, what's the could you do a la carte programming? Could you, as a person wanting to have cable TV, can
Yeah.
you just pick up a few channels that they want?
I know
as
what the
opposed to whole
difference was. I think
packages?
there were more applicants then. You didn't have just a monopoly. You had I
Yeah.
think there were other people competing for it. I don't know who the other.
Right.
So they had to sort of sweeten the pot.
Yeah, but with each
Yeah.
refranchising,
Right. It became there was no competition.
You went from the point where
Yeah.
you could actually argue whether should the sci-fi channel be part of the basic.
Oh yeah.
Now it's not even allowed to be discussed,
You don't discuss anything.
and that's thanks to the United States Congress.
Oh.
When they did some
okay.
re-upping of some Telecommunications Act,
I
whatever,
see. So you know more about
heavily
that than I do.
influenced by the
All right.
lobbyists.
Yeah.
So what happened was now municipalities have almost zero leverage.
Or the actual packages.
Or really, all they can really do when you get to refranchising is basically do a little bit of minor negotiation about government programming, government related, like we have a municipal channel,
Yeah.
public access, and educational.
But it's tied to the television portion of the
That's
Comcast,
another matter, yes.
which is the problem because those subscribers are dropping. I
Right.
don't think it's tied to the internet
The revenue
subscribers.
the revenue stream was entirely based on cable TV
Television
at the time,
subscriptions.
and that's not changed. So
Right.
even as when internet, now a lot of people watch the TV program via internet.
Yeah.
You know,
Although some people do have the triple play, so they get the landline, they get the
right.
TV, and
but
they
it's
get
only
internet.
the cable TV portion that actually funds
Right.
things like
So,
public
so
access.
basically, things have to be looked at because that's not
Right.
going to.
And the city has been trying to work out, and they're still in process.
Right.
Lisa Peterson made reference to this at the
Yes.
meeting. You know, so CCTV, which is public access,
Right.
it actually does some programming.
Right,
now
and they
for
have
the
had
city.
relationships with them. There is,
Yeah.
the money is shared there that they do get, which I didn't know. I didn't know that the money's given also to 22 City View
right,
from that
exactly.
cable.
But now the thing
pot.
is, if in the future
Yeah.
there's a little bit of a merging of these two, then there
Right.
becomes an issue. Like,
Right.
you know, I mean, goodness, if I say something that's less than flattering
Mm-hmm.
here as part of a public access television station, but we're somehow now merged with city, and
Yeah.
then some elected official
Well-
says, "Well, I don't like what somebody's saying."
Yeah, I don't
would
think
there-
that's going to happen.
You know, it wouldn't.
Yeah.
It wouldn't. But the thing is that these are the issues that you do have to
Yeah,
consider.
basically,
when
she
you
said,
merge
Lisa
them together.
Peterson said, how can they merge city and government functions, and we can't commit to $1 million for CCTV
Right.
right now, which is what they get from.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway.
Right. So the future will be a little bit different.
Yeah. But
and-
there, and so that money then, the appropriation was for a consultant, I imagine, to
That's
help
right.
them guide through this RFP.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll see how it all
Yeah.
shakes out. But the
It's going
thing
to be
is,
interesting.
yeah, and you know the thing is that I keep looking on the horizon to see if there's some sort of new promising technology that might permit
Well-
a different way of delivering.
Well, I think this is why
these
the Upgrade
services.
Cambridge people who are advocating for municipal broadband.
create the pipeline, basically.
Right, but then, but
then
what
any
you brought up
franchise
is that
could
things
use it.
are changing, so that city, even though they've said no to it, things change every
Right.
second, so.
I don't
Yeah.
universally love consultants for everything, but this is
Right.
one thing where consultants would
Yeah,
be pretty good.
and it's not $1 million,
Right.
so.
So
We'll see you in the next segment.
we'll be back in
Yeah.
a few minutes on Cambridge Inside Out.